Everybody, happy Tuesday. Welcome to our Natural Health News live show. Crossing my fingers today that YouTube is friendly for us with our Wi-Fi. Well, welcome. For all of you new joining, my name is Dr. Melissa Gallagher. I'm a naturopathic physician and I am working from my home office, just like many of you during the quarantine and staying at home and pandemic that we're all dealing with nationally and globally. So welcome to all of you joining. Today, we're going to dig into some really critical information about 11 categorized underlying health conditions. So I'm going to dig into the latest report that comes out of the Lancet in the UK. It breaks down 1 out of 5 individuals in our world is at risk. So 22%, I think, 22% of our population. So 1 out of 5, maybe even more of you who watch routinely my Natural Health News live show might find this impactful in terms of where are you at with these risk categories and risk factors. So welcome to all of you new joining. I'm going to dig into Natural Health News specific to COVID. I've got my notes here. I'm almost done with my notepad. These are all of our previous shows. So we have been digging through a lot of news research. I also have some information that highlights the transition of COVID with spring break. So many of you joined me on the early lives, and I'm going to detail a little bit of information there. So let's dig in. And while I'm going through this, please comment down below. Let me know where are you tuning in from, what city, what state, and what country. And then also if you are new to our community, it's always great to see new faces and new individuals join us because this is really critical. We are on the increase here in the US. So the world's over. We surpassed 8 million yesterday. So we are at 8,005,294 cases of COVID. We in the US are at 2.155 million. We have 1.365 million active cases. Many of those individuals are at home convalescing, and then there's a whole population in the hospital setting. We have surpassed 118,000 deaths thus far. And I'm going to highlight our international community. So Brazil is almost at 900,000 cases. They are at 891,556 cases of COVID. Russia's at 537,000. In India, I'm watching them, they're at 343,000 cases. New Zealand, who was really impactful with the locking down, mask wearing, social distancing, they were celebrating 2-3 weeks ago that they had wiped away COVID, that it was not there, and they basically were free of it. They have 2 new cases. So even a society that was really, they did all the right things, they have 2 active cases. The US, their new projections, lots of projections. I'm going to share with you those. The projections right now are that the US will surpass 200,000 deaths by October. And that is right at the very beginning of cold and flu season. So that's concerning for a lot of individuals. California, I want to talk to you, many of you who get up early, join us from California or on the replay, watch either Instagram TV or YouTube on the replay. Comment where you're out and about and where you live in California. We have California is seeing 50% there's a whole lot of news out of California. First, LA comprises the majority of cases. So LA County has half of the state's cases. So 50% of the COVID cases reside in LA County alone. The quantity of deaths, 60% reside or have come from LA County. And this is really critical because as things are starting to reopen and restaurants are starting to be open again, there are 2,000 restaurants in LA. And apparently over the last week, health inspectors have been going in. And I mentioned that this might happen probably about a month ago as Georgia was reopening. I mean, we were seeing a lot of businesses not adhering to guidelines, and California particularly, they have mandates. 1,000, half of these restaurants, so 1,000 out of 2,000 restaurants Half of these businesses were not meeting required safety protocols, and they were ignoring safety guidelines. That's critical. So we have people who are coming back into socializing and thinking that these restaurants are being safe, and they're not. And, you don't always sign a COVID waiver when you go out to eat on a patio or run for pickup. So any of you in LA County, just be aware of that. And the death toll in LA County alone is at 5,000 deaths. So that is a major point of contention. And I know it didn't say specifically what's going to happen with those restaurants, but they did highlight that there was some miscommunication, a lack of education, and confusion about requirements. So that obviously needs to get cleaned up. The other thing I want to highlight is that Florida saw, again, another big day, not a record day, but they had an increase of almost 1,800 cases yesterday. Since reopening, they have had an increase of 6.4% of the COVID cases. And that is really critical for Florida and the reopening and a whole bunch of activities that are planned in the summer. A lot of vacationers coming to Florida. I want to highlight some information that came out out of Ball State, but also Vandy, so Vanderbilt University. These two professors honed in on spring break, and they were taking this also from what they were witnessing on their own campuses. But they said, we're going to present evidence that travel by college students identified by the timing of university spring breaks contributed to local spread of COVID. And so they look at the spring break of traditional four-year college, four-year universities. They linked universities to cell phone or smartphone location data. So there's GPS tracking involved. And then they wanted to the purpose was to study the effect of spring break travel on the evolution of confirmed COVID-19 cases and mortality. They used differences identification strategy, and their estimates imply that counties with more early spring break students had higher confirmed case growth rates than counties with fewer early spring break students. And they found that the increase in COVID cases spiked or peaked about 2 weeks. Oh, we've got a little man. You want to say hi, honey? Okay. So sorry, you guys. You guys can't see it on Instagram, but Gabriel did a little sneak peek in. Very excited. So you want to say hi to everybody? You want to tell them how you're wearing your outfit for the second time in? Mm-hmm. Yeah, tell them why you're wearing this is his in-shirt. Why are you wearing that shirt again?
Because we have to do 30 and we have to wear the same thing every day.
Okay, so he's doing building, and Mommy's really keen about keeping the red clay off of some of our nice clothes. So he's wearing the same shirt over and over again. Day 2, sometimes we go 5 days with wearing the same shirt. He does change when we go outside, but it's kind of funny. Okay. So sometimes there are battles I don't totally fight, but educational video and stuff like that are totally fight. Oh, and this morning I'm channeling my Maine Calm mug. This is a mug I got when I was traveling up in Maine a few years ago. I love Maine. I have friends that are they live out of like a camper RV, and I see all these videos that they have up in Maine. And it's gorgeous. Maine is beautiful in the summertime. Sometime I want to have like a cottage up there. Okay, so anyway, I digress. But so what this did is they traced destinations and modes of travel for the university students. And they found that students who traveled through airports, get this, New York City, and to popular Florida destinations, they contributed more to the spread of COVID-19 than the average early spring break student. So their results suggest that universities have a unique capacity to reduce local COVID spread by altering academic calendars to limit university travel. This is really big. Universities are now talking about starting early in August, finishing by right before Thanksgiving break, and then having a longer break. So not sending students home for Thanksgiving, coming back, taking finals, and then going back home. So this is where they're getting a lot of that data. But I think it's really kind of interesting. They look at the travel, particularly the end of April, And through the end of, the end of February through the end of April, and early end of February was really big. That's when a lot of people head to Florida. Growing up there and having a business there, we definitely see spikes in that. So they dig into a whole lot of information. I just want to pull something here. Let me see. Yeah, here we go. This is where they see the spikes. So they have the early date 2/15. That's really early for spring break. 2/15, and then you start to see March hit, and then boom, big time increase. So the date where they kind of articulated the beginning of the spikes, 3/1, in some cases up here 3/1, but for sure this is the window that they've identified, and so they look at all of those specific details. I think this is really fascinating. I don't know if any of you have college students. I even had some friends that their kids went international for spring break. And so that got a little scary for folks in Spain and, some Italy, Spain, particularly France, UK, as things are really ramping up. So I will list this. It's a research paper. It's a preprint, is not peer reviewed. So I do want to highlight that. It was created on the 22nd of May. It is quite extensive. They've got a ton of data, a ton of research that they reference, and then they kind of dig into different tracking mechanisms. So I'll post that. But that I think is really telling, especially the airports in New York City and Florida. So just think about like the hubs. Miami is a big spring break destination. We all saw early March, Florida was doing nothing to limit the spring breakers. Now, US globally. So right now, I want to share with you, we are in the up category. So this is my little thumbnail that I took this morning for this video, but this is the beginning. And what we're not seeing is a dip. We're seeing kind of up and down, but there's like still little peaks. But this is still the first wave. We haven't seen it go down. And what they're anticipating is this might be more drawn out, and we might see the kind of ending of this. Maybe there isn't an ending, and maybe there's another spike. It's going to be something that we're just going to have to see play out. We're just not seeing adherence to some of the requirements that we would hope to see to limit the spread. These are data points from Johns Hopkins University. So this highlights the counties in different like little kind of segments, and by color, the extent of the cases. So, you might see some different areas, if we kind of see Southern Florida and different pockets, like Alabama is really, really getting rocked. And you can see Louisiana, and then up here in the Northeast. So these are, there's some isolated cases where some counties, certain areas, you get bigger red, and then you have like, look, it's white in certain rural communities. But they actually have highlighted, just in kind of a really easy way to identify the major growth that they're seeing right now and identified. And this is as of this morning, 7:45. Alabama. So if you guys live in Alabama is intense in terms of its COVID cases right now. The spread, the hospital systems are not equipped either. And then South Carolina is another one. And I want to report about South Carolina. The representative, so U.S. Representative Tom Rice, reported yesterday that his whole entire family, himself, his wife, and his son tested positive with COVID. In his statement, he called it the Wuhan flu. It's just so insane. But he tested positive with COVID-19. He said his son's case was worse than any of the two in the family. He said he's lost the taste of smell and taste and smell. And he made some comment about how he can't smell bacon. But the reality is that he was on the floor of Congress in DC 2 weeks ago, not masked. And the likelihood of him being pre-symptomatic very high, very high. And so we've already seen some individuals testing for antibodies, like Tim Kaine, I think is let's see, I think he's a senator. Yeah, Senator Kaine in Virginia. He's tested positive for antibodies, and there was another individual, I can't remember his name, that tested positive for antibodies. So they've been exposed. The bathrooms, the hallways, elevators, they have the same issues that we deal with in work setting and exposure. So South Carolina for sure. Gianna, for sure. South Carolina is on the increase. North Carolina is up there. We also see Arkansas, Louisiana, Arizona. I've been highlighting this: Florida, Oregon, Nevada, Wyoming. You see a few, California, but the red alert is Alabama. Next up is South Carolina. So that is critical. The other thing you can look, the CDC is now posting, very excited by this. So you can check this on the daily. So I'll show you, I've run 3 states. I won't bore you all with every state, but I'll show you, for example, Georgia. So if I want to know, okay, where are the isolated cases? Like if we live here, how safe is it to be socializing and being out and about? Well, pretty safe. It's not, light red or orange or dark red. So you can identify the case by county by running your state. So you literally go to cdc.gov, and there's in the COVID component, you can now search. And so this is something I know they were pushing. We could see different states run data, but now you can go specific. So this is all going to be based on the state county reporting. So again, we might have some it might be not congruent or continuous with what the real cases are, but just know you can identify. So where we live is right up in here. It's red all over. This is not good. This is Metro Atlanta, the burbs, and then we also see South County, Albany down here. So you can look that up and run that. I wanted to show you California. So I had mentioned, for instance, California has been on this spike. LA County specifically is in this lower area. So if you live in California, if you're in Northern California, this is a totally different situation with COVID cases than it is in the South. But let's say people in the South maybe go up into the northern area. It's a little cooler. There's some, mountainy ranges. Maybe they go up there for the summertime. That might change. Who knows? But definitely California, the southern region, you can see all in red. And that includes San Diego. And then Florida. You guys know Florida is where I grew up, and we have friends and family and started my business down there. Florida is like, if I were in Tallahassee, right in this area, I'd feel okay. But like this is St. Pete, Tampa. This is the Sarasota, Naples area, and then the whole like Palm Beach all the way down to Miami. So this is really telling, colors, images, things like that gives you a better idea in terms of just how prolific these cases are. So that's really critical. Let's see, what else can I tell you? Oklahoma is definitely seeing some increases. I know there's a big political gathering this weekend. I don't know if it's Saturday or Sunday, but the county officials are concerned. Their hospitals are reaching higher levels of capacity. And let's see, Instagram. How are you guys doing on YouTube? Instagram's giving me poor connection. I swear, this office is like, it's seriously like a bunker. Hold on, let me move this around. Let's see if you guys. I'm trying to see. See, this is Instagram, you guys. Look, and the buffering. Hold on 1 second. Let me see. Reconnecting. I lose Instagram. That's a bummer. Okay, so I'll keep going. YouTube, Instagram might come over. Who knows the Wi-Fi? We've got to make a call today. But this definitely, if Instagram's kind of that's Wi-Fi situation. Okay, so Lori came over from Instagram, is buffering and freezing. Okay, but YouTube, it looks like we're doing okay. We have 108. Give me a like, thumbs up if you are enjoying this content. Some other critical information is that I want to talk to you all about today. And let's see. I'm gonna bring YouTube or Instagram back on. Let's see if I end it. Let's see. End now. I'm gonna download video. Share. I'm just gonna quickly share this to IGTV. Next. Oh, it's even having. Hold on, you guys. Sorry. Yeah, it looks like it's an Instagram thing. Okay, we're just gonna go with YouTube today. Okay, so here's the thing. There is a study out by the Lancet, and it is, let's see, where is it? Specific to, actually, did I print it out? Oh, I might not have. Yeah, shoot. I didn't print it out, but I'm going to tell you. The Lancet, sorry guys, like my printer is downstairs. I'm like a little disorganized this morning. But the Lancet came out with 22% of our population worldwide is at risk. And they've identified vulnerable candidates with underlying health conditions as the main factor. And they've broken out into 11 categories. And in fact, there's one category that I have never seen listed. And so that's a big like, whoa. And it might also be one of the underlying health conditions that predominantly is affecting our Black population or our population of color, particularly Africans and African Americans, have this genetic predisposition or is genetically linked and is identified most of the time in individuals are mostly born with this. So I'm going to dig into this because this is something, if we're not hearing this and it's affecting a particular ethnic community or racial community or, race of individuals, we need to be shouting this out loud because it could very well be a factor that there might be additional research can be done. Some of these specialists, they might need to be calling and contacting their specialists to see. Like with Brian's situation, he has a really unique autoimmunity called ITP. And actually, one of the reasons why I know for sure I'm going to be going live for 2 full weeks because Brian's doctor sent a note in and he went in yesterday and emailed HR the doctor's note. Apparently the doctor's like, he needs to be home for 2 full weeks. So he's home at least until July. So at any rate, I'm here, but let's talk about these categories. So the 11 categories that could be risk categories are individuals that have cardiovascular disease. This could be general cardiovascular disease, or it could be cardiovascular disease caused by hypertension. Second is kidney disease, could be independent kidney disease or kidney disease caused by hypertension. Third, and hypertension is high blood pressure. 3, chronic respiratory disease. Now, this could be an underlying condition with COPD. It could be, chemical toxin exposure. It could also be from individuals that might have had cancer, breast cancer, radiation of the lungs. Things like that might put people into that category. 4th is chronic liver disease. So chronic liver disease is one of those categories where I really want to dig into this because there are many of you ladies who are dealing with fibroids in their breast and in their uterus. You have high cholesterol, high triglyceride levels. You feel fatigued. You're kind of chronically stressed. You might have hair loss, hairs falling out, thinning of the hair. You might notice changes within your thyroid gland, particularly if you're on levothyroxine. These are underlying aspects that could very well be a non-diagnosed state of liver disease. And I say that specifically to kind of equip you and educate you on what are those factors that when we say, wow, they were perfectly healthy, they were in good health, and yet they're on a respirator or ventilator, and you hear, that they've passed away because of COVID. The liver disease, particularly, we have more diagnoses of fatty liver or tissue where the liver turns into fatty tissue, more common in women than we even understand and recognize in the medical community. So we're not always testing that. We do see on CBC panels where your standard blood work, your labs that get drawn, will analyze 2 enzymes from the liver. Sometimes those are elevated, but you get told, oh, that's elevated, but nothing else is done of that. So there needs to be more analysis. So if you are sitting here and you've ever had a lab where you've had an elevated liver enzymes accompanied by either high triglycerides, that's really common with women, high triglyceride levels, and or it's also coupled up with, and or high cholesterol, then it's definitely an indicator we need to assess a little bit more about your liver function. Now, generally, you can tell your liver function by how well your bowels are moving. So if you are having regular, frequent bowel movements 2, 3, 4 times a day, yes, I said 4. This doesn't necessarily mean the size and consistency is all the same, but the reality is we should be, every time we eat, we should be eliminating. And that's a good standard process. So if you have 3, 4 meals a day, sometimes a meal, a snack, you should be eliminating properly. When that doesn't occur, we have chronic states of constipation that then bogs up and causes liver toxicity. The other thing that goes hand in hand with liver toxicity will be a degree of thyroid imbalances. So T3, T4, reverse T3, also the synthesis of vitamin D. Those are all, when those levels are low, imbalanced, skewed, not proper, we can see the beginning stages of some of the liver imbalances that can be an underlying chronic liver disease. We also have individuals that have chronic liver disease from taking an assortment of medications, particularly really strong pain medications accompanied with ibuprofen and some of the other over-the-counter pain meds. Sometimes folks are in lifestyles or professions where there's more toxicity. So it becomes critical that we really assess the liver function. The other thing I want to notate in terms of how to measure on your own your liver functionality is the color, consistency also, but mostly the color of your bowel movement. So the color of the bowel movement should be a really dark color, dark brown. And what I would say, let me make sure this is totally on. This is what I had mentioned yesterday. I couldn't find it yesterday, but this is my friend that makes the Beauty in the Raw, the 3-letter botanical facial oil. So good. This is the bottle. This bottle is brown. That is what you want to have, not the label, but the brown color. That would be an ideal bowel color. So the movement of bowel transaction. And that would be something where if it's lighter or more caramel color, that's indicative that the liver is not producing enough bile. And sometimes I work with folks that have pancreatitis from liver dysfunction. There are bile stones or duct stones. They get the ducts. So there's like little valves and vessels, these little ducts where the pancreas and the connectivity to the liver, it gets stuck. And so there are these little stones that get lodged in. One of the best things you can do to support your liver, 3 things: 2 herbs, milk thistle and dandelion together. Those are powerful for clearing and detoxing, supporting the liver. The third item is to do castor oil packing. And I routinely do that. I do that frequently. Women, you can do that if you're menstruating, you can do that, especially during ovulation. It's very good for supporting the liver function, thyroid imbalances. If you're on levothyroxine, you should be doing castor oil packing frequently, because the levothyroxine is because of the liver dysfunction, where the liver is not converting the right amount of thyroid hormone. And that's a lot of things we don't always understand. Anatomy-wise, the functionality of certain organs and glands, and the liver is both an organ and a gland. And it has responsibility in producing and synthesizing certain hormones and chemicals needed in our body. Okay, so that was number 4. And I want to highlight the liver because that's another one that a lot of people don't really recognize. And it also gets a stigma like, oh, well, they're an alcoholic, or oh, they drink a lot of alcohol. That is just one aspect of liver disease, but we can have hormonal imbalance that can trigger liver disease, improper functioning thyroid, chemical exposure, toxins in our environment. And then we also can see nutrient deficiencies leading to some of the liver imbalances, and then chronic constipation. So that is number 4. Number 5, diabetes. I've talked a lot about diabetes And I'd encourage you to watch some of those videos specifically. Number 6 and 7 are both cancer related. The first being cancer without any immune suppression. And the second one is cancer with some sort of immune suppression. Sometimes it might be part of the cancer. And also you can have cancer without with immune suppression, but there's treatment involved. So it gets a little hairy, but cancer is definitely in that category. There's just 2 versions of that. 8 is AIDS and HIV. 9 is tuberculosis. Generally here in the US, we don't really see that as much, but we do see that. We actually, when I was in India and working with the Sisters of Charity there, I volunteered in Calcutta for a while when I was traveling, and worked in the Home of the Dying and the orphanage that they were running in Calcutta. And in the Home of the Dying, there were a lot of TB cases. And I had no idea how overwhelming that is in other countries. We vaccinate and we had to do all sorts of things when we were going over there. But that is something that is a factor. So we might see this play out in other countries. 10 is chronic neurological disorders. So that is something that folks that have any neurological disorders, there may also be some underlying aspects there with the vascular channels, also potentially with the liver and some of the neurotransmitter balancing aspects. And then 11, this was the one that was a big, whoa, I've never heard of it. And I've never even thought about it, is sickle cell disease, sickle cell anemia. And sickle cell specifically is and comment down below if any of you are dealing with sickle cell. But it is an inherited blood-related anemia, and it primarily affects Africans and African Americans. And there's an estimate that about 90 to 100,000 Americans are afflicted with this particular disease, and it's blood-based. There's an assortment of symptoms. Generally, what we do when we look at like a live blood cell analysis of the blood cells should be round. They should just be this really nice little round circle. But a sickle cell, they actually are abnormally shaped. So they literally sometimes will look like crescent shaped. Just a really unique kind of look. And they can challenge blood flow. They can block blood flow and circulation to tissues within the body. They can also cause damage or disease within certain organs, and can be very, very challenging when individuals deal with any type of like bacterial infection or immune-related challenge. So let's say you get exposed to COVID and you have sickle cell, and maybe it's not managed. Like a lot of times we're managing sickle cell and there's certain medications that folks are on. I know of patients, and I've worked with them, that they didn't know they had that until they were in their 20s or 30s. So there could very well be a population or community of folks that have never been diagnosed with this. I know that sounds crazy, but that does happen. It also can present for patients. They can have leg ulcers. So I do see this more frequently with my lymphedema patients that have either they're from Africa, and I work with folks all over. They're either from Africa or maybe they're African Americans. They're specifically dealing with a primary condition, lymphedema, but the sickle cell then creates leg ulcers. So the lymphedema that they have is a little bit more overwhelmed. There also is pooling of these blood cells, sometimes in the liver and the spleen. And so we can see fluid accumulation lymphatically, but there's actually a pooling of blood. And so sometimes a minor injury can be fatal. And we do see that sometimes in athletics, like football, where kids have major spleen-related injuries. So I want to highlight this because this is something, and I don't know if anybody's relating to this, but it is very, very serious and can cause a lot of pain. But most importantly, it's being listed as a category, a risk category. And I have made a commitment to highlight any of the discrepancies healthcare wise for any type of that demonstrates any type of racial inequality. I think that's how I can be most impactful with my professional background. And this is something I really feel compelled to highlight further, maybe an edited video or two. But please, if you know anybody in your life that is dealing with sickle cell anemia and they are working, they're socializing, or they're shopping and out and about and not protecting themselves, mask, eye goggles, please encourage them to do so, because it is critical for their health that they minimize this exposure. We already know that these 11 underlying health conditions, they are linked to the inflammatory related cytokine storm. And I don't have all of the data. We don't have all the data, but the Lancet dug in and looked at what we had up until April and early May and looked at who are the most vulnerable in our global population to this disease based on what we are seeing or have seen. And so they extrapolated these 11 categories. And I think this is really, really important. So, some points here, like we definitely, the cardio, the beginning ones that I listed, you hear about. But, the latter two, chronic neurological disorders, who's talking about that? Not a lot of people. And then for sure, sickle cell. This is really, really essential that we dig in. So my question for all of you, do any of you have sickle cell who are watching, or have any family members in that category? What is sticky blood? I had sticky blood, Raynaud's. Okay, so sticky blood, basically, like if we look at the blood, we can do, there are people, and every state has a little bit of different licensing, but they're usually like phlebotomists or nurses who have the ability to do minor blood draws. They will do like a little pinprick and a blood collection, and they will put your little blood collection. It literally is like a drop or two of blood on a glass slide, and they cover it so it becomes active or stays active, so it stays wet. And they put that under a microscope. And usually there's some sort of big screen that you can then visualize what that microscope is looking at. And you can see, and this is what pathology, the scientists that are in the labs, in the hospitals, they run urine analysis, all these different things. Well, one of the things they can do is they can identify what's going on with the cells. That's how we identify what these red blood cell looks, what the sickle cell looks like. The red blood cells look totally different. And so what they do is you can see like sticky is where usually the red blood cells stick together. Sometimes it's from fibrin. So sometimes it's the kind of fibrin matter. And I've highlighted that there are a lot of fibrin blasting products. I've highlighted those in our Full Script store that you can grab. But the K2 is a really big one that'll help reduce that. So K2 deficiency can lead to, thicker blood tends to be what people, we say that thicker blood in the more kind of clinical setting. Also, you'll notice like the dialysis machines, a thickening of the blood. So that tends to be fibrin in its relation. Sometimes it's also, depending on your digestive process, it could be leaky gut related. And you also are dealing with food pathogens that the blood is reacting to. Okay, so I am not mentioning Lyme disease in this. This specifically highlights, Lori, 11 risk categories. So Lyme was not on here. My mom has sickle cell anemia, Kay Jefferson. Okay, so my question for you is, have you been screened for it, Kay Jefferson? I would make sure that you've been screened. Okay, Dr. Melissa, is sticky blood dangerous? Okay, let me move my thing here. Okay, I touched something. Okay, let's see here. Okay, so let's see, a sticky blood. Sorry, hold on. Lots of comments coming through. Okay, All right, sticky blood, Renaud's. All right, I'm going to go to Kay Jefferson. Dr. Melissa, is sticky blood dangerous? My labs came back negative for sickle. Okay, for sickle cell, but positive for sticky blood. I didn't know much about it. Yeah, so K2, omegas, and I would add in a digestive protein or digestive enzyme that has a higher quantity of protease, because often we will see the sticky nature of the blood, sometimes the protein in its relation too. So the other thing too is if you haven't had your MTHFR tested, I would test that for that genetic defect, and that could very well be linked too. So your mom's genetic component, that might also be manifested in your own body. Okay, a few other members have sickle cell. Yeah, so Kay Jefferson, please communicate with all your family members about the risk category there. And it is something, if they are not in routine care, I would even have them set up a telemed conference or appointment with their medical provider just to get more details, because this is one thing. I'm not a specialist in this. There are specialists that deal with sickle cell. And so they see patient after patient in hospital, in, office clinical settings where they're more up to date on that. They're also part of the associations. There's more data. I don't have that specific in front of me. Let's see here. Okay, let's see. All right, you guys are such a great community. And if you're loving this, please give me a thumbs up. And I definitely want to thank Pat. Pat is so awesome. Thank you, Pat, for regularly showing up with me every day, monitoring our feed. She's so welcoming for new followers. I see her always commenting, hi, welcome. And you guys are such a great community. Okay, so Juliet, good morning. Bloodletting was thought to be beneficial in healing nearly every disease, from acne and asthma to cancer and smallpox. And yet it was not. It is not founded as anything beneficial. It actually caused more grief, and they would actually bloodlet too much, and the patients would suffer. So there are much better ways to do it. I like to utilize the anti-inflammatories, the fibrin defense. I've highlighted there are multiple videos I have here in the live show catalog that you can reference about the blood clotting. So there are things in there that you could take away that could also be beneficial. Let's see. Yes, Cupcake Paper, didn't Lisa left eye from TLC? She did have that disease. I don't know how that contributed to her level of care potentially when she had her accident. I was devastated. I love that group, and they're from the Atlanta area. So, the question that I've always wondered is how much of that, her being involved in a car accident in a foreign country, that's just not the same in terms of, rural medical, other country care versus like if she were here in Atlanta, if that was some factor in terms of the fatal nature of the car accident. Okay, so Christine says, let's hit half likes and then beyond. So please, thumbs up. 132 of you. I'm so sorry, Instagram. Seems like we alternate our angst. But at any rate, these are the categories. I wanted to highlight this. I don't have really like specific, one single kind of component to look at. But for sure, I'm hoping your takeaway on this is sickle cell is a disease category we should be hearing more about. Guarantee we're not going to hear a lot of it out in the news. So it's going to be something you'll probably see. I might post a few things on my feed and my thread to highlight, get the word out. And hopefully on Instagram, I have a lot of medical community members who follow me. Hopefully they'll pick it up and start posting it. But we definitely need to have greater awareness. And I think it's also indicative too of some of these inequalities. When we talk about why are certain populations more susceptible, we need to make the awareness and the education, the data, like this is research. We need to make this a much greater global population public awareness campaign. So I will do some digging around. I'll follow a few sickle cell communities on Facebook and Instagram, and hopefully they can they can also get the word out. So Darlene says, so much info that we don't get in the news. Thank you for the wonderful info. So much to process. I know it is. More Love says, I thought it was T-Boz that has sickle cell. She might also. I mean, all I know is I love Lisa. I love Tyler. I loved her. I love that group. And she might, but I know for sure Lisa did. So TLC, yeah. So everybody loves her. She was so pretty and talented. Let's see. TLC warriors before their time. Thankful they stood up to the powers that take advantage. Yeah, seriously. So one of the things that I think is just critical just to know is that this, and I repeat this all the time, but I feel like we have to kind of be aware of it. Everything is novel about this virus. And so every day there's more and more peer-reviewed and non-peer reviewed. Like this is, a preprint, this college student data, everything, we're getting more and more stuff. The CDC now is, this is the latest and greatest. Now we've got more info. Every day we're going to get more and more info. And I think the challenge too is the news cycle. There's so much in the news cycle. I mean, we're really dealing with 3 catastrophic scenarios. We're dealing with COVID globally. We're now seeing the racial inequalities and the awareness, the Black Lives Matter community, the protests. This is global. We're seeing a lot of that. So we have that, COVID, the racial inequalities coming and percolating up to the surface. Like what happened here in Atlanta over the weekend is just, it's heart-wrenching. Things should not yield just stuff that things should not happen. And so we have that in the news cycle, and then we have an economic crisis. So of course the news cycle is, really bad to really bad to really bad. And there's just a lot of stuff that gets the cracks. So a lot of stuff's falling through the cracks. So I'm trying to decipher on the health category, the health side, specific information that will allow all of you to be aware and educated and knowledgeable about the new data, the clinical research that then can be impactful for you and your families, but also our community. And so I'm going to encourage all of you, if you have any degree of social influence or are on Facebook or Instagram or any of the, social feeds, please do post this video and tag it with something about sickle cell, new disease category or new COVID risk health category, sickle cell. That type of info, and the more we get it out there, the more there's greater awareness, and hopefully we'd see it reported. But I just thought, oh my gosh, I don't even know why I missed that. But at any rate, it happens. And, we just have to keep putting out, information for our friends and our family members that's founded, clinically proven data that we can reference, that they can reference and hopefully make good decisions. So, yeah, so that's our show. All right, so I see Sharon says there is also a resurgence of TB in this country, especially in lower income areas where there's crowding in the homeless community. I'll have to look into that. I feel like I did hear something about that. It's just one of those things it's just crazy. I know we, seen the measles outbreaks. So there's definitely some component there. Kate Jefferson, thank you, Dr. Melissa. I'm going to take today's information to my family, church community, and friends and family on Facebook and Instagram. Yes, please do. Thank you. I appreciate that. We need to just spread the word, and especially to communities that are greatly rocked by this. And if you guys are on Instagram, please check it out. Yesterday I posted a really great video about 2 gentlemen, 2 Black nurses, and they had their, because of Instagram, there's a whole bunch of TikToking and stuff. I actually love all the TikTok dance, nurse dance videos. That's my guilty pleasure. So I watch them and I love it. I have this one song in my head. And it was great. The beginning of TikTok, they were in their scrubs. And then the next TikTok part of the video was them in their hoodies. And And that is such a big difference, right? Like the scrub wearing gentlemen, the two same guys, they're wearing scrubs and they're heroes. And we tout them and we highlight them and we're like, yay, they're great. People are banging pots and pans and clapping for them at 7:00 in New York City. And yet they leave work, they put their hoodies on, and their lives are at risk. And that is a discrepancy we need to all address. So I'm just putting it out there. So please check it out. If you like it, please share it. And unfortunately, I'm going to be posting some really sad images of my garden. We had a massive hailstorm the other day. I knew I'd have damage. I assessed it. I'm not kidding you, friends. We had neighbors that were they measured our hail. We had 1-inch size hail. It got as large as 1 inch. I have literally holes in my strawberry plants. The leaves, there's literally it's like a hole, like it just a round hole in my strawberry plant leaves. My kale that I had just harvested, I've got some of the new kale just completely rocked. I mean, my cucumber just devastated. So, but luckily my heirloom, I think it's a Cherokee purple tomato, that seems to be okay. We've had a few branches that fell off, but I'm calling it a him. He has like 5 tomatoes kicking. So I'm very excited by that. But yeah. Oh, Pow, yeah, I saw your message that nothing was you didn't have any hail coming. It was seriously insane. It hailed, I'm not kidding you, probably 20-25 minutes. And our neighborhood, we had all these roofer companies out here yesterday, like just going door to door, passing out. I mean, I don't know how they knew it, but we also just had our roof replaced because of other hailstorm damage that wasn't covered. I think if we had waited to this one, we would have definitely gotten a whole new roof. But at any rate, they were canvassing our neighborhood. It was that bad. And we had exponential flooding. Like we are doing rain barrel collection because of the way our backyard's set up. We have a slope and it literally, we're trying to defy nature. And then yesterday, while I was with Gabriel inside, we had some crazy wind. It almost was like a tornado. And we went upstairs to a little safer area and come to find out one of our trees broke off at the top. So now we've got to get the tree guy out again. I'm sure he's crazy busy. There's always something, but I'm a little sad about my garden. But you know what? Sun will come out. We'll get new leaves. All will be well. And you know what? That's what life is all about. We just go with the roll. Whatever life throws at us, there's always sunshine after a hailstorm. So I feel like globally we're in a massive hailstorm right now with all sorts of stuff going on. But just hang in there, friends. Stay positive. Keep breathing. Really keep up on your nutrition and stress relieving exercises, and give yourselves grace for space, grace for grounding. And yeah, Lori P, Mother Nature is angry too. She took it out on my garden. But yeah, so and I haven't even checked our wild blueberries. They're ready to be harvested, I think, this weekend. So I have all these Pinterest ideas, and I'm totally rocking out my Instapot. We kind of hit our capacity for the recipes that I can make and know how to do. And Brian's like, can't handle it anymore. So trying out Instapot. So if you guys have any really good Instapot recipes, let me know that are on the healthy side. And more love. Do you recommend a TENS machine for muscle pain? Yes, I actually do. Actually, I have one here. Yes, I do. TENS are great. These are usually about $50. But TENS units, tell you what, friends, I literally have everything in this office. So if you just named out stuff, I'd be like a scavenger hunt of my office. But yeah, TENS units, these little portable units, they have battery powered. You could this has the ability, you could kind of hook it onto your belt, and then it comes with the electrodes and these little sticky on things. Yes, I would recommend that for deep tissue support. We also, and I've been subject to this as a patient, you can even do TENS related acupuncture. So sometimes if we need to invigorate like an ovary or invigorate a certain gland or organ, acupuncture can do that. So they'll do acupuncture needles, and then they'll latch on a little electrode things. I'll clip them on, and it literally will cause contraction of that space, but you're invigorating that acupuncture point. And so that point is connected to the organ gland or whatever system. So what is the brand of the test unit? I don't know the name of the brand. Oh, it's from Roscoe Medical. These guys they sponsored one of my holiday health gift guides. So they sent me this unit. I've used other ones. I actually really like this. It's portable. It's super lightweight. I've traveled with this. It's great if you're dealing with a lot of deep tissue related pain and inflammation. There's like 7 or 8 different settings that you can use. And Christine, I'm actually going to be trying out a dessert. Like, I have neighbors that are just killing it with all these awesome things. So, and also what we are doing, my new project, I have a garden that we're laying where we're going to have our windows for the kitchen. So that's happening. I haven't even looked at that destruction from yesterday's rain and wind. It's just planted and then it like just turned really dark. We are building an outdoor kitchen mud area, play zone, the activity center for Gabriel. So I'm collecting supplies and might turn some of our kitchen remodel into an outdoor center for him. Just recycling like the sink that we're never going to use again. So stay tuned. I'll probably post videos on that as well. But I was thinking of getting one. Period cramps and pain. Yes, period cramps and pain can be beneficial. If you do a TENS while you're cramping, you can sometimes increase the volume of blood flow. But I find TENS, if you're dealing with muscle cramps or like hormone stuff, do it at the ovulation point or when you'd be ovulating, because that's when you have some of the greater impact to balance things out. Shelly R, how old are you? I'll be 42 on July 31st. So my birthday is coming up. Yeah, I'm 41. It's just a number. I don't even think about that. But thank you. I try and do all sorts of natural stuff to keep my body as anti-aging as possible. Some gray hairs here would tell you otherwise, but I feel like that's from Gabriel. Let's see. I'm getting there. Looking for a good ozone. Oh, ozone's great. Yeah, TENS is great. I like your recipe videos. Oh, thanks, Nita. More love. You guys are awesome. 41 sounds young to us. Honestly, my grandma taught me when she was 98 when she passed away. Age is just a number. It's all about how you feel in your head, and your body actually follows what we feel. So, I'd say I've kind of elevated. I feel like I'm maybe 29, 30, 31. Christine had my last baby at 40 and she's turning 30. Awesome. That's so fantastic. Let's see. It's funny, when I was pregnant with Gabriel, I think I was 36. Yeah, 36. I think I had him 37. And I mean, they treat you like you're a grandmother, like 35 is the age where like, you're just, you're an elder in the maternal years, but we have to really recalibrate also the sexism that we experience in female health care and health practices. And this is across all ethnicities. I can't tell you how many feeds I see of like breastfeeding moms, because I'm still on these groups. Breastfeeding moms being told like crazy stuff, BS stuff from other female doctors and even male doctors. It's just crazy. So Jana, yes, on the gray hair. We older first-time moms worry more. Oh, totally. I think if I were in my 20s and I had Gabriel, I wouldn't be as nearly like insanely anxious about stuff. Like, I literally can see all the things that could happen around him all the time. It is a horrible situation. I was 36 when I had our last boy. Was told I was on a high-risk pregnancy. Yeah, so age, they just put you into this category. And so I went in like just really trying to be counter to that philosophy and was okay up until the point when we started to have the high blood pressure with Gabriel, and we were going to have a birthing center experience, and we did the hypnobirthing. But like, I remember we had a shift change. Like, we went into the hospital with Gabriel at like, I think we rolled into the hospital bed at 5. I had him at 8:30, but in between at 7, there was a shift change. So the first shifts, they stuck around. They wanted to kind of see, because they were enamored by our whole process. Oh, I hear little feet, pitter patters. They were enamored by our whole hypnobirthing process. They had never seen anybody say, I don't want any medications. And I was like, I had a doula there. And I felt like I was representing a population of us that they have no sense that you can be totally okay. I have women in their mid 40s, and I have a 51-year-old who's had, she now has a 10-year-old child. It's totally possible. Yeah. So Christine, I love breastfeeding, but didn't have any support for doing that. Yeah. That was, I think, the most eye-opening thing for me, was I had just done so much preparation for the labor. I mean, I did all of these things. I have a protocol, like a, quick, speedy labor protocol, like homeopathics. And I did all these things, and I had the best labor, fast, easy delivery, all that stuff. But it was the after effect I was able to prepare for. And there was nothing that I could reference that helped me deal with that. Like I had, adrenaline shakes after for an hour. I had no idea that that's a thing. Nobody talks about that. And yeah, the lactation consultant was horrible. She was really mean and rude. And yeah, so women don't get supported postpartum like they should. And we have, our country is so terrible at postpartum support anyway. I have friends that go back to work 7-8 weeks out. Like I thought I could do that, but it took me 5 months to get back to where I could be clinically seeing people. And even then it was part-time. I never returned to that full-time schedule I had before. And that's okay. This is a period of time where my child needs me. But, I had this idea that I totally could because everybody does it. And like, no, it was not the case. Let's see, Pat Bunyan surgery before I was 50, then had one after 50. And it was like the medical people thought I'd age 40 years. Yeah, there's totally a stigma. Yeah, so Jana, I love it. You know what? And it's not as bad. Like there's a word I use for the labor process, and it was primal. I always described it as like it was primal, and it was something that superseded pain. But I mean, I got into it. I was breathing. The period of time for like when we left our house to go to the hospital to the time I delivered him in my head, and it was like 5 minutes. It was so fast. I was in like a different plane. And I had read, there was one book. I'm trying to remember what book I read. It actually might have been one of the hypnobirthing books, but I think she's in Tennessee. I can't remember her name. But she kept saying that like, this is so what women are meant to do. And like, we transgress like what we know as women up until that point that we deliver. It's fascinating. And then I read a book by Dr. Amen, who talks about like the female brain, how we literally, as we're pregnant and getting ready to have our child, and then as the labor process happens, and then usually within the first few weeks after, there's this whole transition of the female brain, and the female brain pregnancy actually elevates and changes the female brain permanently. And I think he calls it, let's see, it's a pink book. I'm trying to see. I have almost all my reference books over there. It's called like the female brain or the super female brain or something. But he kept saying it was like supercharged. And I was like, awesome, I'm going to learn how to speak Italian. That never happened. I never had any sleep and I was tired. It's exhausted. So yeah, it's crazy. Let's see. Yeah, it was seriously an out of body experience. My husband told me he'd never breastfeed in public, and I never did when he was around, but I always used a blanket or nursing tubs. Yeah, so breastfeeding, that's a whole nother thing. It's so challenging. I didn't feel confident being in public setting. I felt okay being around some friends, but I definitely was not. I had a mommy groups I was part of. People are rude to breastfeeding moms. And from other women, it's really interesting. The sexualization of it. It's just not. And it's so good for the babies. It's so good. Oh yeah, back labor. So that's a lot of positioning. A lot of times, activities like the big ball that I do all my, the yoga ball chair, like I use that all the time. And I even changed up what I was sitting in when I was working in my clinic. A lot of that has to do with our hips. And so a lot of female hips, we've got to do a lot of kind of yoga stuff. And there's great things like there's, for like pregnancy related massage and chiropractic. And I was up on all of that to minimize that. You met Dr. Amen. He's awesome. I go to several conferences where he's spoken. He's pretty amazing. I just am so impressed with the work that he does on the brain. Okay. Women, our family could not breastfeed. We all have severe allergies. I don't know. Inflammation, sometimes too, there's hormonal related components. Like this is the other thing. Women with PCOS get told, oh, you can't breastfeed. Bull, bull, bull. That's not true. But there's a lot that happens. And every woman's body is different. And then every pregnancy is different. So you can have 2 or 3 kids and each experience is totally different. And then there's a difference between carrying a male and a female. All those different things contribute. But I was really tuned into communicating with Gabriel while I was carrying him. And then also I was like having communication with him about like what the delivery was going to be like. And like, we're waiting for you and it's going to be really easy and super fast. And like, I manifested that. And, there's a lot to that connectivity. Let's see. My son is an only child, goes from sweet angel to gremlin. Huh, that sounds like Gabriel in 60 seconds. You're hilarious. I was such a happy pregnant lady, and then hysterectomy miracle child. That's great. Yeah, mine gremlin too sometimes. I'm working on it. I'm actually, his brain, he's growing a lot. Like he said last night he didn't have growing pains, but I'm upping some of his brain related stress. So I'm doing more herbs for him right now that are stress balancing. He's almost 5. And so there's a big change between like a 4-year-old and 5-year-old, what I can start having him take, some minor adaptogens and things like that. So that's what we're looking at with him, which is going to be good. Gremlin. It's so fast. It's like you get whiplash, like, oh my gosh, they're all sweet and lovey. And then they're like a monster. But what I find is some of that's just like the brain development. Also, this period of time, I've noticed there's certain times where he freaks out a little bit more. Yesterday was tough because Brian went back to work. And then he's now back. And so this morning was an interesting morning. Like I started to lay new foundation of like routines with daddy being gone, and now we're back to normal. So, let's see. My sister damaged her back. I never recovered. Yeah. So that's the other thing. Speaking of backs and like, the way we labor is horrid. Laboring on our back. I have more women I know that have broken tailbones. We're not meant to do that. The tailbone is actually meant to rise up. And so that actually opens up further and helps ease delivery. And to get that to happen, we actually have to get off the bed. And so laboring off the bed in different, positions can be really helpful for all of that. So tends to be the positioning. And actually the origin of how women labor currently on the back is because of some pervy French king. Literally, like he changed the whole process of how women labor. And so he could purview and doctors could see women in their laboring process. I mean, like that's literally the history of laboring as we know it. There's no other reason. There's no clinical reason why we do that. And yet we adhere to these like archaic reasons of laboring. So that's one thing to know with the labor process. But I was going to say specifically pelvic support. We have perineal tears, different degrees of that can also affect the pelvic floor. It can affect the bladder function and control. And so the sooner women can do pelvic floor development and recalibration, like I know my hips changed in terms of how I sit. It's affected even like how I pronate or not with like my running shoes. It's really interesting how the body changes after babies. But a big thing that we don't see is the postpartum rehab and PT that women need to support their pelvises. So if you are sitting here like, my bladder is not the same as it was, it could very well be from the pelvic floor. It's still weak, and it could be weak 10, 15, 20 years after delivery. And we just don't have a community that really supports that postpartum care. Yeah, so I've actually seen Dr. Amen. It's funny. I know his team makes him do them, but it's really good that he does that. He's brilliant. I love his wife too. She's pretty cool. Fish oil and magnesium. Yeah. So I'm changing up the fish oil. I'm going to try a liquid. He's also being weird about like some of the things I can get him to take and not, but my child takes supplements like a champ. So I'm grateful. I just try and really load him up with a lot of good stuff. But like today, he ate 3 mommy cookies. So, they're fully loaded with protein and all sorts of nutrients, green powders. And he ate 3 of those. And then he ate a protein bar. And then he's like, I guarantee I'm going to walk out of here and he's going to say, what are we eating? So he's in total growth mode. Oh, you're close to Dr. Amen. I would love to have the brain scans done. I think it's amazing. Yeah, birthing chairs, those used to be really big. That's how they did it in England for a while, before the French crown. Pervy. I can't remember. It's one of the Louis that started it. He was a pervert. He was a sadist. Which one was the sadist? I can't remember. I'm not the best on my French royal history. I'm more English history on my monarch recall. But okay, so friends, I am so excited for our little chat here too. And I definitely want to encourage you guys, communicate about the sickle cell. We all have friends. We all have friends and community members, neighbors that might be susceptible or know people. So we definitely please get the word out. So let's tune in tomorrow. I'll see you tomorrow at 9. I will post some of these links down below. And by the way, if you haven't checked out Full Script, please register. There's some big stuff coming out next week that I'm going to highlight on Monday. So I will see you guys later. Thanks, Pat. I'm so grateful for you. I love all the kitty pictures. And yes, great conversation. Kay Jefferson, thanks for sharing this. I'm grateful for you and for everybody. I hope you have a good Wednesday. Or no, today's Tuesday. Have a good Tuesday. Bye, everybody.